What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Hope you're doing well today. And finally, it's all been given the clear. Both parties have kissed and made up. All is good. Everything's under the rug. And I am finally comfortable now to be able to give my full opinions on the A-Kit bikes in MX Bikes. I have not ridden these before, ever. I have installed them right now. The reason for hesitation is because there was some dispute about the values went into the packs. This seems to have all been sorted out between both parties. So now I can confidently play them without any worry about anything going wrong further down the line. So we're going to see what it entails. Under the MX1 class, which is what I'll be doing today because I'm a 450 rider, it only makes sense. We have got every single bike you can imagine. We even got the Varg included in with this pack as well, which is quite interesting because I've always wondered how the Varg would stack up against the normal bikes in a racing sense. Now, on the mods post, it says that all of these bikes are, their pivot points are all lined up. So if you prefer one bike or the other, but you want it to look different, kind of how you do on Sim, you can put a model replacement on it. So let's say you really like how the Fantic rides, but you want it to look like a Honda, you can do so if you have like the right model swaps files available, etc. Also on these, they said the bikes do ride differently, but they are all competitive. So I would like you all to bear that in mind. So let's say I ride the Suzuki, for example, and there's one or two things that maybe I'm not 100% on. That doesn't reflect the pack as a whole because each bike is a little bit different. But I don't have the time to sit here and do each and every bike one by one for enough time to test them. This is just going to be a generic overall feeling of the bikes. One thing that I would be quite interested to try at the beginning is the Honda, because this has the new Honda model in it also, which I think it looks quite cool. I think some people are not big fans, but I don't mind it at all. The handlebars look a little bit on the high side for me, but I'm guessing there's going to be some manipulation done to get all these pivot points per bike lined up with each other, so I don't mind that at all. Also, if we come to skins, each bike has hand guards, so just based on paint. So the base has no hand guards. If we click on hand guards here, which there is a typo, by the way, boys. The A and the U are the wrong way around, but we'll let that slide. And we've got some nice Acerbis, Acerbis, whichever you want to refer to them as, hand guards. And we're going to slap them on, mostly because it just kind of matches the overall gear that I'm going to be running today. So we are going to stress test these. We are going to do a very, very smooth, easy Supercross track, first of all. Probably do the last round of Supercross because it was quite an enjoyable one. And then after that, we are going to go and take it to the hills of Villars-sous-Écoute in France. And we're going to stress test it on the roughest outdoor track as well. More so just to see how they handle. I'm not going to change settings at all. Like, I'll probably leave fuel the same. The suspension's not going to be touched. I might mess around with, like, tyres. I don't know what the tyres consist of for these bikes yet. But we are going to give it a go and see how she runs. So with the power of editing, I will see you on the Supercross track.
For all of you passionate gamers, you can now get 20% off all G Fuel products worldwide by using code LINS at checkout. And for any of you motorheads looking for some new drip or apparel, use code MXPR_LINS15, fxrracing.eu to get 15% off. All links and codes are in the description down below. Enjoy the video and drop a cheeky little like and subscribe.
Right, yeah. So into the garage here. So we've got some actually real world tyre names, I'm guessing. I don't know the exact brand because my motorbike knowledge is atrocious. The whole time growing up, my dad was just my mechanic and I'll just hop on the bike at the weekends and ride it. I know nothing about bikes and bike maintenance, so I'm going to keep things stock. There is a very real possibility that other variations of this could be better and grippier. I'm leaving it as is. I'm leaving the fuel the same. Suspension over here, I'm not messing with values. Drivetrain, that looks quite similar to what I normally run. These bikes could handle differently. They could have different like limit ranges, etc. So I'm going to leave that, and then I'll leave it on race as well. So we'll just save this. We'll call it and we're going to see how they go. What I am going to do, because let's go to the track. I can't go to the track. I haven't got a marker set on here apparently. Because the viewpoint looks a little bit on the higher up side, I like staying a bit more low down in the bike. I'm going to press Shift C on my keyboard and move back. I'm going to press Shift C again and move down, and just try and get that to a point that feels a little bit more more comfortable than normal. Because when it comes to this game, just the slightest differences in first-person views make a world of difference. So let's see how they go. I want to kind of take my time a little bit as we go getting into this. What's it like in the whoops? Very good through the whoops. Handled them very, very nicely. It's changed down into third. So this gearing is slightly longer than what I would usually run. So it's interesting to see how quickly the bike picks up. See how torquey it is. The reason I'm riding Honda as well is I am a Honda enjoyer. At least I was in the last set of OEM bikes. Like, I really enjoyed it. You remember when I rocked up at Sweden on it, I had a whole setup I really, really enjoyed. And it just felt really smooth and consistent for me. And then after the most recent ones, the Honda is not too great anymore. But I did have a really good night last night at 2023 Sweden on the Gas Gas. Completely threw away 2 moto wins that I could have won if I wasn't such a goober and a choke artist on the Gas Gas, and it was very good. Really vibing with it. So we'll see how she goes. The only thing I do want to mention still with these bikes is I don't believe they're on MyMXB dedicated servers. I don't know if they're on Rezo's dedicated servers or not. Reason being is just within the A-Kit bike team, one of the members, again, I'm not going to name drop at all, I'm just giving you a base and a reason why I kind of burnt bridges with the MyMXB side of things a while ago before all of this dispute. So I think it's just trying to mend those bridges before anything happens. But we'll see if they get onto the servers at any point in time. But for right now, we can enjoy it as they are. You can still host your own individual worlds with friends, etc. Or if you are smart enough to be able to run your own dedicated server without all of those external resources. I know I can't. I have no idea what goes into running a server like that. Then you're still able to do so, I believe. So just wanted to throw that out there in case people were wondering why they probably still won't see that many servers with the bikes on them. But so far, so good. It feels a little bit, what's the word, tighter than what I'm used to on the OEM bikes. It doesn't quite get lent over as quickly, but the grip is very, very grippy, like really, really grippy. So I don't feel in danger of like really sliding out anywhere. The gearing as stock feels absolutely fine. I have no issues at all with that. And then jumping wise for the suspension, it's not like popping me up in there. It's not rebounding at all. It seems to handle the ruts pretty decently as well. You're still always going to get that issue of if you lean over a bit too far, dragging pegs, dragging handlebars, etc. And that's when the front end will tuck. But it doesn't seem to tuck outside of that. So it feels very, very stable, which is nice. I can't remember. I'm just looking up at lap times now. I can't for the life of me remember what lap times we were running for qualifying or whatever for this race the other day. Which is going to annoy me. I want to say maybe it was under the 50s. No idea. But what is nice is this skimming through these whoops seems a little bit more viable than the old jumping was. I do need to try and jump into them. I need to try every single line. And the reason I wanted to try this Supercross track is just because it's the most fresh one in my head. Get up and over that bad boy. I do really like the fact that they all come with their own separate handguards, I guess, skin. I'm guessing to just not run handguards, it might be the same template, just with no colour on that part of the PSD. Again, that's outside of my area of knowledge. I'm not smart enough for all that stuff. But that is quite cool. That is very, very cool that you have the option to mix and match. The only downside is I checked just before I pressed the record button, and the Varg does not have handguards. But how cool would that be, having a Varg with handguards for outdoors? I think it'd be very interesting. It'd be nice to see. So I'm unsure on the direction of this game. Obviously, we've got the outdoors series around the corner, which I'm 99.999% sure will be on the OEMs as well. It would be nice if that continues for the future, obviously, and we ride the OEMs throughout each season. It would be really cool if we were maybe able to get the Varg in with the 450s, let's say, to compete with them, because I think it would be a really good advantage out of the gate, so some people would want to get a better start and ride it. But then I think it would be a disadvantage around the rest of the track, just with how the bike handles, the lack of engine braking, all that stuff. So I think it would be a really interesting gamble, let's say. I remember way back in my sim days when I was actually still competitive. I was racing in the NA series, and my competition at the time was Tyler Schmidt, who I had some of the best battles of my entire MX Simulator career against him. We're really clean, really fast rider. In that season, this was a 250 class, by the way, they allowed 252 strokes to compete with the 254 strokes. Now, I was on the 254 stroke, and he was on the 2-stroke, and that thing was an absolute rocket ship out the gate, but then when it came to handling around the rest of the track, it wasn't quite as good. So 9 times out of 10, he'd get the better start than me and start out in front, and I would then have the job to try and reel him in and catch up, and I've had some just really good clips over the years. I don't think I'd be able to find any of them anymore, unfortunately. But just like me passing him and then him squaring up and just giving it a squirt of power and coming back up the inside of me, and really good times. I miss those days a little bit, but I'm nowhere near that competitive at that game anymore, so that's all in the past. What I am feeling somewhat competitive about these days, though, is bikes. For whatever reason, maybe it's just in the Swedish soil, I have no idea. For whatever reason, when we go to a French track or a Swedish track, I always seem to ride or play incredibly well. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but I ended up top qualifying last night, and that never usually happens. And then I ended up getting 2 second places. The first race, I was 20th at the end of lap 1. So to come back and get second in that, I was very, very happy. But I could have easily won both motos. So that is a lesson for me in, I guess, race management. And as the track gets rougher and rougher, knowing them limits and then just telling myself to check up, because I was just trying to go too fast, I think, at any given point, and then just getting a little bit frustrated when the road kicked me in a way that I didn't particularly enjoy. So far, so good. The bike has not thrown any weird things that I didn't expect it to do. It seems fairly planted in the corners. The grip feels on the higher side. It does feel higher. So if we was to compare it to like the factory bikes, for example, this is much grippier than the factory bikes. And I think that's the general direction that the game is in now, is having more grip. I think a lot of the community really do enjoy that. I would like it just a tiny bit lower, but that is personal preference, and I know that I'm kind of seen as like the grumpy old man of the community at this point that wants the bikes to be a little bit slower and a little bit on the slipperier side. And more so, I think people will disagree with this, but I do think it adds a layer of realism when you can't bang open the throttle wide open on a 450. And this applies to OEMs, it applies to AKIT. Again, I'm not trying to make comparisons at all. This is meant to be its own like separate conversation, but that's just how I feel. I think the factory bikes did do a really good job when it came to traction overall. The only thing that I wish they did improve upon a little bit before they disappeared was the front end stability. I think if they got the front end stability as good as the OEM bikes or now these AKIT bikes, because both are really planted at the front, but then still had that little bit of a slipperiness in the back end, I think they would have been the best bikes. But just, again, personal preference. You can all enjoy what you want. That's just my opinion of it all. So very capable. Again, I've not touched suspension at all. So just by stock, by default, out of the box, you can run some pretty decent lap times around here. And just bear in mind, these are my first laps of the game of the day as well. So I'm going to be a little bit rusty too. It'll take a little bit of time to warm up. So Honda, very capable. Looks nice as well. Just in the first person settings. Oh, you might not be able to see it here, but when the light reflects on the shrouds in a certain way, it's like the shrouds have slight imperfections to them. They've just got little scratch marks and like fingerprints, which again, really cool level of detail there. So good job on the Supercross side of things. I'm gonna go and choose another bike and we'll go over to France and try and tackle the hills. So again, with this one, just personal preference, I feel like I prefer it down and back a little bit. I'm not sure how you go about changing the cockpit view from a bike creation standpoint. I don't know if there's just a point that you set an adjustable area on, or if it just is where you end up based on the pivot points of the bike. But let's see how this one goes. I have noticed that the bikes, I'm not sure if it is the view as well, the cockpit view, but the front fenders, they all seem a little bit on the skinnier side than what I'm used to as well. And it's just these tiny little things that will make a difference to how you ride. But we're on the Suzuki. Of course we was going to ride the Suzuki. I've always got a weak spot in my heart for the Suzuki. If it was a faster bike in the OEM pack, it's something that I'd ride on a very consistent basis. I really did enjoy the suspension on it. And we're going to see how she goes around here. Stepping up and over that jump there, that is usually a jump that I kind of just barely get the back wheel up and over. But first attempt, and it seemed to go over it no problem at all. This is one of the roughest parts of the track here. So I'm going to put it up into 5th gear. I'm going to just half throttle, lean back a little bit, see how it handles the bumps. Oh, little tag there. That's just from me hitting the handlebars on the inside. That is not the bike's fault. That is yours truly's fault. I'm going to manual up these, try and keep the back wheel on the ground, channel out in at Eli. It's got a lot of power, a hell of a lot of power. It does like getting up on the back wheel from time to time. So you just have to keep that in mind. If you're someone that likes getting off the back of the bike and banging the power open, just bear in mind that you might loop her out, which is something that I'm very guilty of. I know that if I'm trying to go particularly fast, especially over rough stuff, I'm just trying to keep that back wheel tracking constantly. So I'm letting off the back, trying to manual everything, and then every now and then it'll just kind of catch me out and I'll end up going over the back. So the fact that that is kind of more pronounced on these is something I'm going to have to keep my eye out on, just be a little bit more careful with. I did see people commenting, apparently. Oh, yeah, no, that's very noticeable. So the gyroscopic effect of the bike, if you have no idea what I mean by that, is when I'm in the air and I touch the brake, it's how much the front end dips down, and when I accelerate, it's how much the front end comes up. Seems very powerful on this. So if I accelerate, yeah, see the front end coming up there? And when I was braking, obviously it was dipping down. That seems to be quite effective on these. So it gives you a little bit more like maneuverability in the air. I wonder if it would help you save much. Because, I mean, you know how this game gets, how the track and the jumps get once it's all eroded away. The kickers that you get are pretty brutal sometimes. So I wonder if, because of that extra power and how the front end comes up in the air, if you do get that little bit of a kick going over the handlebars, I wonder if it would like really benefit you just to be able to whack it open and bring that front end up again, because that's something that the Varg I think does really well, where it's just got a disgusting amount of acceleration and torque. The gyroscope effect on that is huge, and that's actually very comparable to what I'm riding right now. That's the only way I can think of it. So yeah, really good, very nippy. Again, completely stock suspension right now. I've not changed it at all, and it seems to be handling the track okay. That crash, that's just MX bikes. This game has a very weird way of making the front and back end almost feel like they're detached from each other. So if you want a little tip, when you're kind of turning, so this hill that I'm about to go down, we're still turning to the left as we're going down it. What happens sometimes is the game would say, no, actually, I don't know what's going on here, and it'll just make you do a full 360. You'll suddenly break all traction. Whereas if you stand up around it, and then you almost pop a little wheelie, and then lean forward, so your back wheel is constantly touching the ground, then the game doesn't mind it as much. It only seems to be when your front wheel is touching the ground that it hates it. So as I'm turning around here, little bit of a lesson mid-video, you're going to lean back, get the front wheel off the ground, then lean forwards, keep the back wheel on the ground, and this stops all of the wonky physics from happening. So it's almost like you're just wheeling down the first part of the hill. The main issue occurs is when that front wheel and back wheel are on the ground together. It's almost like there's a disconnect that the game doesn't know what to do with it. So again, not bike related, happens across all bikes. So just a fun little tip with Linda there. Handles these bumps quite well. It's like you don't feel as much of an impact on each one, and I'm not sure if that's just the suspension's a bit softer by default or how it works, but it feels like I can kind of jump them a bit easier. Maybe not like blast through them and skim them quite as hard, but the ability to Sexton or Lawrence or whoever jumping your way through braking bumps feels a little bit more natural to me at this point. Going to send this bad boy. Hard landings seems to have quite a bit of an impact on the bike. Jumping that single back there onto that uphill is can be a little bit stressful sometimes. I remember trying to qualify for this race, and the start of your lap would just be made or broken by how well the bike kind of absorbs that. So I'm sure this is all things that can be changed by tweaking the suspension a little bit. Scrub this bad boy again, try and get down this hill. I don't think I'm making this inside rut, so I'm not going to try and turn too tight. Get on the power to get up here. Keeping it in third, it does seem to pull quite well in the higher gears. So if you're someone like moi who likes to, let's say in the lower rev ranges, try and be a little bit smoother, it seems like you do have the ability to do so without losing too much time from bogging way too much. The downside I have on this game, which is by my own infliction, is the way I've got my gears and stuff set up with not holding the clutch or not letting go of the throttle to change gear, or I just have shift help, which is just a habit I had from playing thousands of hours in MX Simulator and coming over here. On Sim, you can just change up and down gears as much as you'd like and not have to worry about clutch or anything like that. So I wanted the same feeling on this. The issue with shift help is it does cost you like a tenth or 2 tenths every time, just with how long it shuts the throttle off for. So most of the time I try and be very strategic about the points of the track where I'm changing gear. So if I can exit a corner in a gear higher, then that actually works out in my benefit. So it seems like these do a good job of kind of getting that power at the bottom, carrying it all the way through to the top. And so far, I don't notice a real difference in terms of the power delivery of the Honda and the Suzuki. They do feel very similar to each other, and in the handling as well. That could just be because I'm unfamiliar with them, but I don't feel a difference between them at all. So I know they said there's slight differences between each bike, which maybe will be a little bit more noticeable once I try out some of the other ones as well. But for right now, they do feel really similar to each other, which I don't think is bad either. That was another thing that I quite enjoyed about the factory bikes, is you could, I guess, rep your favourite bike brand anytime you wanted, because they all rode the same. But yeah, if you do find one bike that you prefer over the other in this pack, then you then have the ability to, I don't know if where they'll share model swaps, unless it's just putting your own model swaps on bikes, but you do have the ability to kind of mix and match the aesthetics of the bike if you want to, which is always a good thing for customization. More so like these days on the live streams, I feel like people are experimenting a little bit more now these days with different bikes, but it might just been because we was getting towards the end of the season and people just want to have a bit of fun and mess around. But yeah, I noticed the last couple of rounds, at least in 450, we were seeing all kinds of colour bikes. There was still the usual amount of KTMs, to be fair, but then we had Huskies, we had a few Gasses last round, we're getting a bunch of Yamahas recently, and even a Kawi here and there making an appearance too. And the odd person, usually me, rocking up on the Suzuki from time to time. But overall, thoroughly impressed. Bikes ride really, really well. So it seemed like everyone was enjoying them, to be fair, so I didn't expect any less of them. Hopefully everyone can understand the position I was put in with all the investigations going on. I feel like I have a duty at this point to like vet things that I show off on the channel, because I've said things and done things or showed off things in the past on the channel that ends up to come and bite me in the bum because I didn't have all of my like, what do you call it, chickens in a line, ducks in a line, duck chickens in a line, all of my eggs in my basket. I didn't have all the information at hand, but it's all been cleared. It's all back up on MXB Mods, so that was good enough for me to kind of get the go ahead and go and play them for you. So hopefully you have enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned a little bit maybe from my turning going down the hill explanation. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on the bikes as well. And again, I don't want this video to become like a forum for throwing abuse at any particular party, because on the mods post as well, Jesse, who I guess is like the, let's call him the public spokesperson for the A-Kit bikes at the moment, he kind of handles all that stuff. He doesn't seem to have any harsh feelings with like Insane when they was having conversations on there, so it's all been squashed, it's under the rug. So hopefully everything is all positive moving forwards, and we should be in a similar position to where I suppose it might cause a little bit of divide on who prefers what bikes, because we did have this with the factory bikes too, where for some reason people can't coexist peacefully or ride one bike and then ride the other and go back and forth. It almost feels like you're kind of picking sides, but my decision most of the time on what bikes I ride depends on what the series are running, which I think is going to be OEM, so that will still be my predominant bike. But if then you do get some A-Kit series going up on my MXB or wherever it may be, then 100% I'll join them exactly the same as I did on factory bikes. I still enjoyed going to the occasional factory bike race and just trying them because it's just something different, and the game does need some variety from time to time. So good job all round. The bikes look good, they feel good, they handle well. The only thing that I wished was maybe a little bit more variability in the cockpit view. I'm not sure if that's something that you guys can achieve from the A-Kit team, if that's kind of the only constructive criticism I have really at the moment. And then the only other thing other than that is I think they're a little bit on the grippy side, but that is my same opinion across OEM and A-Kit at the moment, so don't feel like I'm just targeting you guys for that in particular. But really good stuff all round. Glad I finally got to play them, and I'm glad I took my time on them as well, to be fair. I didn't want to rush something. That is Barbosa's doing me dirty there with all them bounces, Jesus Christ. So if you have enjoyed the video, please drop a cheeky little like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It'd be very, very much appreciated. Have a lovely rest of the day, whatever you guys are up to. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.
I'm working hard, I'm sacrificing my life, I'm sacrificing my mind, I'm sacrificing my sanity, but most importantly, I'm sacrificing my time. Boy, I feel fine, I feel like I am a king. Honestly, I can't complain, even with faith that's the size of a grain of some salt, I will still move a mountain and do what I want.